Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Every Touch, a series I do where every week I take one Carlton player, look at just about every single disposal of theirs from the weekly match, alongside some observations I made, and some moments which don't count on the stat sheet. Today's player under the spotlight is Tom De Koning. This man, especially in Carlton fan circles, has been a focal point of discussion as he enters the final year of his contract. Some questions thrown around are, what is he worth? Is he worth that amount we think he's worth? Can he even be our number one ruckman? The Sydney game, whilst a preseason game and under tough conditions, did flag some worry for me. Now, we know how hard it is to have a premier ruckman on your hands, like finding a diamond in the rough. Tom De Koning, through glimpses he's displayed, most particularly last season, saw some go as far to say he's worth $1 million a season. Now, I'm not saying I agree, but if we're valuing him that highly, I'm going to use max scorn as a reference point as I analyse his performance against the Swans. I'll start off with things I liked. There were some good second efforts at the contest. He applied a level of pressure which is going to be imperative from a ruckman who definitely makes his presence more felt around the ground, or at least relies on that more so to make an impact. And whilst this was a free kick, I liked his attack on the footy here. Clean up the clumsy nature of how he went about it in that instance, and I'm content. He had a couple meaningless handballs in there. There were a couple instances where he let up at the ball well and presented, as well as getting back to take some intercept grabs coming in from the side. But here's where the issues for me start to trickle in. We think about Max Scorn, the guy constantly presents himself as an option and the ball rests in his hands more often than not when going for a mark. TDK seemed to be very outpositioned in this game. Now, in some cases, the kick towards him didn't do him justice, but we know this man's aerial ability. He's capable of leaping and taking a big grab, incredibly impressive for a man of his size. He didn't seem to maximize this well enough. Some of his run-ups seemed stunted. Sometimes he'd get edged under the ball and there'd be no fluency in what he would be trying to do. He'd get outbodied or outsmarted at times. Remember that this isn't limited to a specific part of the ground as well. Alright, so this is something I don't really like about what TDK is doing. You can see that Josh Honey is running into space. This kick is a bit nothing, but you can see TDK is just sitting in this really no man's land position here, not really impacting the possession. I would have liked to have seen him run this way. Obviously, there's plenty of space. I mean, granted, Josh Honey is also running into that space, so you probably don't want to cram him up. But that said, if he even ran like 10 meters, like this far, you open up the entire goal square, and if Josh Honey really wants to, he doesn't have to kick the goal on the full. Instead, it's just this really fancy kick that basically makes no sense in the play. But you can also see that Tom De Koning, excellent chase down tackle. Good second effort, and you will see, via courtesy of that, Blake Acres kicks the goal. We also talk about Max Scorn's ability to get back and take intercept marks in defence. If TDK is going to stamp himself as an around-the-ground type ruckman, he needs to be running the length of the field, not only to deter oppositions from kicking the ball anywhere near him, but if they do, he's got to damn well punish them for trying. Alright, so this is what I find really intriguing about this one. Dylan Stephens is down here. He's just kicked the ball. It's about to land roughly in this area. TDK is actually here. Now, he should be much further back, like down here, so we can actually make a little bit of a run and jump. Max Scorn probably does this coming in from the side, but TDK is actually tracking backwards and he's going back with the flight of the ball. This is exactly what you don't want to happen. I mean, if we want TDK to maximize his aerial ability, he needs to have all the momentum in the world, and that's going to arise if he's running in this direction, not in this direction. So if we let the play run, you will see that he's got absolutely zero influence on the possession, on the play. We could have had an intercept mark if he just, checked his run or positioned himself much better so he's actually facing the kicker. If we talk about the other end of the field, this prompts another question. What's the split of TDK's time between the forward line and the midfield. In this game as a forward, I could not actually work out what TDK's role was. Sometimes he'd be a deeper lying forward playing out the goal square, and then he'd be higher up the ground. I think that's part of the issue. Given he's not a full-time forward, his craft isn't very fine-tuned. TDK a lot of times seemed to bring his man higher up the ground where he went, and whilst the Blues played a very bomb the ball down the line kind of game, TDK didn't help the cause. Lots of times, JSOS, TDK and Charlie seem to get in each other's way and create congested pack marking type situations, which stagnated our ball movement further. Simply put, defenders naturally have to defend. So the minute you go where your teammates are, the more reinforcements there are for the opposition to kill it out of play or take an intercept. This one's also a bit interesting to me. TDK is down here, and you will see JSOS is right in the corner there. And I believe there is a small forward there. I believe that's Jesse Motlop. Now, what TDK would ideally do, there is a fair bit of space in this little portion here, or even just behind these two players sitting here. Now, instead of that, if we play the footage, you will see that TDK brings his defender across to the pack. Now, if he just simply decided to lead up here, then not only have you made yourself an option where you're possibly taking a mark if the kick is good, but you've also cleared up this section, which now has 6 players involved, and you're probably not taking the mark. The percentage is low as it is if Dame Rampy is involved or even Tom McCartan, but if you put those two in the same contest, you've got no chance of winning it unless you're feeling it that day. So we play the footage and you can see the result, which is definitely not a mark and a pretty messy possession at ground level, which ultimately results in us giving away a free kick. Now, this possession's really intriguing to me. You're going to see Blake Acres obviously has the ball and is looking down the line yet again. But we can see TDK, for some ridiculous reason, is sitting right here. Now, I don't know what impact he's having over here, but these key forwards need to work it out. JSOS is there, and I believe that's Charlie under the circle, but there's no reason for these three to be sitting in this one patch here when you've got no one in acres of space down there. So if we play the footage, you will see that obviously we win the ball, but where on earth is he kicking it to? Where is Ches supposed to direct that? Because now all this space is nothing. Josh Honey's got to go into that spot, and I'm pretty sure with the high up and under kick like Chera's about to kick here, you're not really playing the percentages quite well. Like a kick like that, what on earth is he supposed to do there? I would consider that boundary throw in an absolute win. And whilst TDK moving wouldn't solve the problem entirely because obviously 3 different parties, if he sat a bit deeper and served as an option further down the line, things would seem to flow a bit more freely. As I said, once Harry returns, perhaps there's a bit more cohesion and understanding. But this is one area TDK probably needs to clean up. I do think if TDK can get his forward craft to an acceptable level, then this would level up our attacking structure. Charlie can venture higher up the ground and push upwards of 15 touches a game. Harry can take that centre half forward area, and TDK can sit deeper where he's probably most able to kick goals. Problem is, we're not at that stage yet. I'd also like to see him demand the ball more and take more control where he can. A lot of the time, he points to the space but is standing still and sort of runs to where the ball is kicked to. I'd like to see him take control of it more and lead up at the footy more. Even if he doesn't get the ball from the kick inside 50, at least he makes his presence felt, because it seemed like he was a bit non-existent down there. If you were constantly on the move, it stands out more so, especially to the kicker, in comparison to if you don't, where there's more chance of being overlooked. And this one sort of captures what happens when TDK doesn't make his presence known. It's almost as if the forward line doesn't really recognize he's even there. So you can see Pitnet, handballs it to Kennedy. Now, TDK is situated right here. If he had an inkling of confidence, he would run into this space and potentially get the mark around here, which is a very good spot to take a set shot at goal. Instead, the kick has been absolutely overcooked, pretty shoddy kick, and obviously it didn't do him much justice in terms of actually getting the ball to him and actually giving him a chance. But that said, you know, TDK's got to give players a reason to kick the ball to him. You know, that kick, I couldn't actually tell if he was going for goal over the top, but he's got to give the kicker who's running inside forward 50 an option and be authoritative and be assertive with that lead. Just be commanding. Okay, so this next possession I also have a bit of an issue with. You can see that Tom De Koning is just out here, and I believe that's Peter Laddams right there. Blake Acres has just taken the mark. Now, I just want you to watch his movement here, because it doesn't seem like there's anything really assertive. Now, I would have liked to have seen something a little bit more where he runs into this sort of area as opposed to out here, because you can already see there's quite an excessive wave of numbers venturing over to this part. I mean, that is the safe option, and it seemed like that's what we were going for in the entirety of this game, but I would have liked to have seen something a little bit more aggressive there. If we advance the footage, you can see that the kick allows TDK to make a jump, but him sort of sitting at the back of the pack wasn't really beneficial to TDK, especially with that aerial ability, and the ball's actually coming away from him, it seemed like, in that possession. So he probably needed to assume front position to get that mark. Max Gawn's pretty good at this. Sometimes he does finger point and wait for the kick to make him move, but he does balance that evenly with a bit of movement. Sometimes blocking allows for more freedom in this instance. If we talk about TDK's tap work, he's not really known for it, but some of the tap work was really, really good. Obviously, if he can use his athleticism to tower over ruckman and get that extra leg up, that's something worth maximizing. But he was pretty good nonetheless. That said, for his good, there was a bit of average. Now, this is a little Max Gawn comparison here. I mean, if we play the footage, this is very reminiscent of Max Gawn. He'll take it out of the ruck, he'll use the body work, he'll really judge the flight of the ball quite well. But I would like to see a little bit more thought behind this kick, because once again, that kick has just been sat on the head of Charlie. It's not being situated in this spot here. And now you've got Fisher having to run back. You've got Matt Owes, who's not even remotely positioned well, because the ball is just flying over the top into this pocket of space. So Owes is, even Zach Fisher is shaping up for the ball to drop here, because obviously the kick was, well, it should have been located here, but it's just gone way over the top. So if we play the footage, you will see that these small forwards basically have zero impact on the play, when, you know, if the kick was a little bit more measured and more calculated, then these small forwards actually would have come into the play a little bit better. I think that was really the story of the night with our kicking, generally speaking. There'll definitely be moments of adversity where the midfield's struggling and De Koning will need to stand up at the contest, especially in the case where we're getting smacked at clearances and losing out on the territory battle. TDK is at the core of that, so his ruck work and effectiveness with his tapping down will need to be pinpoint. Overall, TDK did some nice things like many others against Sydney, but like many others, was too inconsistent with those positives. TDK needs to show more authority and make his presence known, not only so he can bring an extra element to an already potent Carlton forward line, but also so oppositions don't want anything to do with him when he plants himself in the backline. Those two things can change a game in itself. Overall, if his presence within the 50-meter arcs become more impactful, then I think the contested pack marks at center wing, that sort of thing will just fall into place. I am looking for him to maximize his athleticism and just play the percentages. Playing from behind in wintry conditions like the other night isn't a bad idea, but giving yourself an advantage by assuming front spot and taking a solid grab around the ground, or inside 50 for that matter, would have opened things up for the Blues. Especially in a match where Sydney pressure was at an all-time high and it hindered our ball movement. Taking a grab would probably remove a bit of the burden. Hope you enjoyed. Drop a like and subscribe. We'll be doing this every week. Round 1 is just around the corner. I'm excited. Should be a big season ahead. Have a good one. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.